If everybody can please rise. Ashrei, Simime Dara, Ahalchim Besairas Adonai. Ashrei Naitre Edaisa, Bechal Lev Yidrshu. Af Leifa Alu Avla, Bidrachav Halachu. Ata Tivisa Pikudecha, Lishmar Ma'ai. Achala Yikainu Derachai, Lishmar Chukecha. Az le'evaish behabiti al kol mitzvaysecha. Aitcha b'yasher leva b'lamdi mishpatei tzidkecha. Es chukecha eshmar al ta'azveni ad me'aid. Ma ahavti sarasecha kol hayayim hi sichasi. Me'oivai tichachmeni mitzvaysecha ki le'olam hi li. Mikol melamdai hiskalti ki edvaisecha sicha li. Miskenim espainan ki fikudecha natsarti. Mikol airach ra kalisi raglai leman eshmar devarecha. Mimishpatecha laisarti ki ata hayresani. Ma nimlitu lefiki imrasecha midvash lefi. Mifikudecha espainan al kain sanesi kol airach sheker. Tough. Tikra rinasi lefanecha, Adonai kidvarcha havineni. Tavait chinasi lefanecha, ki imrascha hatileni. Tabainas fasait tehila, ki slamdeni chukecha. Ta'an l'shaini imrasecha, ki chol mitzvaysecha tzedek. Tihi yadcha le'azreni ki fikudecha v'charti. Ta'afti lishoascha Adonai v'sayrascha sha'ashu'ai. Tchi nafshi uzhalaleka u'mishpatecha yazruni. Ta'isi kise ayved bakesh avdecha ki mitzvaysecha lo shachachti. We'll ask Hashem to end this bitter galus ad masai. Ad masai. Ad masai. Our melech, Yechi HaMelech. Yechi HaMelech. Yechi HaMelech. So we can be seated. A short word, anecdote that really reminded me of our incredible THLA who's sitting right here. Last year, Hanukkah, I had a very interesting experience where there was an old woman who I met with some 8th graders on Rebbetzin, and we invited her to come in on Hanukkah. She was very excited about the candles, and she hadn't lit in many years. You could tell she grew up very cynical about Yiddishkeit. And we invited her to come on Hanukkah when we were singing Hallel to be part of the experience. We were going to light the menorah with her for Persumei Nisa. She was very emotional. She was watching. Also like emotional and then also like cynical. You know, she was trying to get over her feeling that she's excited about Yiddishkeit. And in the end, she asked me, do I have a lot of kids? I said, Baruch Hashem, yes, I do. And then out of the blue, she's literally walking out. She said a very, very inappropriate comment. I'm not going to say it word for word, but she said, like, do you ever have time with your husband? She said it very explicitly in front of a bunch of 8th graders. And I just like pretended to say, oh, thank you so much for coming. Yes, the elevator's right there. She was walking out, pretending like she didn't say anything, but obviously I knew everyone heard. And I called Sarmarazov. I said, what do I do? Like, what do I do? How do I address this? And she said, you know what, in the Dalet Amas, we always want to know how do we talk to our kids about these sensitive subjects. So this is such a shkacha pratis, because girls need to hear from us, the beauty. Anyway, she gave me an incredible idea. And this challenge that I had, this interesting situation, opened my eyes to an incredible teaching about Taras HaMishpacha. Then in Chumash, you could teach a different Chumash in honor of Hanukkah. There's a Chumash, a Baal HaTurim, about the 3 wells that Yitzchak dug. And the Baal HaTurim explains, Rashi also explains how each one of the wells corresponded to a different enemy that later on is going to attack Yitzchak's children. And by him digging the well, he is giving them brachas and providing the salvation for that enemy. And the 3rd well, Rechayvais, was connected the Yevanim of Hanukkah. What did they try to do? They wanted to stop Taras HaMishpacha. They wanted all the mikvahs to be closed, and you could be killed for keeping these chukim like Taras HaMishpacha. And what did the Baal HaTurim say? Hizmin Hashem lahem mikvah b'bayis v'chol echad v'echad. Hashem made a very big miracle and he prepared a mikveh in the home of every single Jewish house. A miraculous mikveh appeared in the times of Hanukkah. In fact, you go in the archaeological diggings, there are many, many mikvahs. And the Rebbe expounds and says, really, it was not just Yehudis who had the merit of her mysterious nefesh that we celebrate Hanukkah as a woman's Yom Tif. It was really all the righteous women in that generation of Hanukkah. They're the ones who convinced their husbands to go to war. The Chashmai Na'im had a shaila. They weren't sure if you could be Meiser Nefesh. It wasn't Yareg Va'al Yaver. It wasn't yet like the three mitzvahs that you risk your life for, and it was definitely risking your life. And they said, for Taras Mishpacha, you must go to war. And it's really in merit of all those women. Now, the past year, we've seen tremendous mysterious nefesh to hold dear to this incredible mitzvah of mikvah. And I really want to give a huge, huge yachar and all the brachas in the world. Vorlea Wagsho deserves a standing ovation. Bucket. They're just a drop in the bucket. And you have to understand when Verlea is texting me, like you were texting at like 1 o'clock in the morning, do you like this tent or that tent? What do you think about this for a Kain Gadol? And that was when we didn't even know where we were going to have the classes. We didn't even know if people, and I said to Verlea, we want it. We're going to do it. Let's just go for it. But we don't even know, like, yes, no, are people going to come? What's Los Angeles going to look like at that time? And literally, when you say the words Mysterious Nefesh, really that is Verlea. Our house is filled from head to toe with all of the Taras Mishpacha things. It's on our mind constantly. It's really the Mysterious Nefesh that brings us here today. And Hashem should bench you a million times over.
Amen.
The Mysterious Nefesh of women in general. Now we're so excited to hear about the halachas that we hold so dearly, because this is literally what is bringing Mashiach. I remember walking on Yud Nisan. I remember, because that's the day, always Taras Mishpacha. The Hayam Yam of Yud Nisan is about how Taras Mishpacha saves lives. And like, if you could even have one woman keep, and usually on that day, we're like making phone calls and trying to remind people, let's say, who are Taras like, how's mikvah going, like that's the day. And I'm like, it's COVID. It was also Shabbos. And I felt so like, Rebbe, like we want to strengthen Taras Mishpacha, but this whole COVID, this whole thing is so crazy. I'm not even seeing anyone. There's no show. Who can I talk to? What can I do? This is the Hayam Yam. I'll never forget. You just have to have a desire. And I'm walking down the street and someone stops me, very social distance. And she said, I'm supposed to go to the mikvah soon. My husband's very worried. He doesn't want me to go. Is there any way, what can we do that like maybe they can sanitize it before me? I said, wow. Look at the amazing power of Taras Mishpacha. And Baruch Hashem, the mikvahs were amazing with allowing women in that situation to be like the first one to go, etc. And we arranged that month by month. But this past year has seen tremendous, really nisim from Hashem and tremendous suffering of Am Yisrael. And in the merit of everyone coming together here in the Mesiras Nefesh mikvah, we should literally be dancing tonight in Yerushalayim. There's no other way to say. So it's really, I thank you so much.
Thank you.
And should be blessed in every single way. And thank you so much. So I guess Charlie is going to say the rest of the thank yous.
Make a shachianu. First time like this since in so many months. Before I start, I want to thank Hashem, because with COVID and everything, honestly, a lot of obstacles, a lot of questions, and I really saw Hashem's hand in what you see tonight and in the next 3 weeks. Erev Yom Kippur, Erev Sukkot, Erev Yom Kippur, Erev Yom Kippur, I get 2 phone calls from two different Persian friends of mine. One phone call is my friend Camelia. She says, Dvorlea, I want to sponsor an entire mikvah class. You know, the 4-week series, one of the classes. I want to sponsor. I'm going to send you Venmo $2,000 right now. I said, what? Like, wow. Okay. So I was like, Hashem, this is my green light that even with COVID, it's going to be live. And I'm not going to just do a gift, but if I have that extra bonus, not this week, you'll see in Ritz Hashem, the last two classes, you're going to have something that, that's really something very valuable and special. A beautiful personalized Tehillim and a beautiful pushka to hang in your kitchen wall, because the next three classes in Ritz Hashem, the theme is the world stands on three pillars, which is the three mitzvahs of a woman. Tonight's thing, oh, and then the second phone call I got Erev Yom Kippur was from another friend of mine, Daniela. And Daniela said to me, Leah, can you come Erev Sukkot the night before Sukkot and do a challah bake at my house? And my instinct was, I would love to, but it's Erev Yom Tov. I have all my kids home. I have a lot of cooking. I'm having 20 or 30 guests. It's a stress on me. I right away want to say no. And then I just closed my eyes and thought, if Hashem put this in front of me, there must be a reason. That means Hashem is giving me the strength to do it, and I have a chance to inspire a lot of not yet from women, and I'm going to say yeah, and I did it. And I really have to thank both of them, because that was my push to start. So then, because I prepared for Daniela's challah bake, the next three classes, you're going to see the theme is based on what I prepared for the class. And I was like, wow, Hashem wants me to say yes, so I can get inspired, and this will inspire others, which you'll see in Ritz Hashem. And then I went to Ross. Once I had my thought, I start seeing literally Hashem put three pillars, for the three pillars the world stands on, a globe, everything was coming to place. And I was like, okay, this is my green light, that it's going to happen, not just on Zoom, but live. So I have to thank a lot of people, and the hour's late, so I'm going to just do it quickly. The bakers, Elisa Garevich, Dini Aftin, Bushki Garevich, Bushka Lowenthal made the caramel apples, thank you. I'm set up today, Sharona Number, she even came with me to Vernon, so I don't go myself when I want to get some props. Thank you, Sharona, for being behind the scenes every day. Esther Plutke, Liat Omitvar, Mrs. Gassman, Deborah Effiun, and my daughter Elisheva Waksha with her two friends. I also want to thank Goldie Bazinski and her daughter for helping with the toothpicks. If you see the theme tonight, it's a woman is the Kayan Gadol of her home. We have the painting over there, by the way, also my daughter Elisheva helped me make. We are the Karet Habayit. We learned that we are the foundation of the home. We are the balabasta. We're the homemakers. We're the Eshet Chayil. Tonight we're going to learn another thing. We are the Kayan Gadol of our home. And that's why on your chair you will see the Kayan Gadol 12 eyeshadow palette, because you are the Kayan Gadol of your home. The Kayan Gadol's job was not just, it was taking physical things like karbanis and making it spiritual. It wasn't just lighting the menorah, but there was also dealing with blood and karbanis and a lot of cleaning. And we as the Jewish woman, as the Karet, we have that power. We are taking care of kiddulah and homework and laundry and changing diapers, bathing kids. We have a lot of responsibilities. We have that same power. We are the Kayan Gadol of our home. And if you look over there, you see that the Kayan Gadol had three main jobs in the mikdash: lighting the menorah. We light Shabbos candles. They took care of the lechem hapanim. We take care of challah. They took care of the ketairos. And they would go to the mikvah before doing their avodah. We do the same thing. So we are the Kayan Gadol of our home. And tonight we're very lucky that we have an amazing teacher who is going to teach us how to take the physical and make it spiritual, like the Kayan Gadol. And I also have to thank, behind the scenes, for the past 2 or 3 months, a friend who became a sister, who helped me in every detail that you see, and that is Rifki Markowitz. If you see the hummus labels, the bubble ganache labels, the tiramisu, if you see the beautiful flyer that people message me, wow, this is gorgeous. All the little details, which you'll see in the next few weeks, the poem, all this, look at this. Look, have you ever seen such talent? She took the mitzvahs of the woman and the Kayan and showed how we personify the Kayan Gadol. We are the Kayan Gadol of our home. Rifki the Eberster Mishkan Bachai being involved in every detail. She's like, what else can I do to help? And guys, I'll tell you, I'm a perfectionist, so dealing with me is not easy. It means it's not a 9 to 4 job. It's 24/7. Rifki, Hashem owes you big time. Thank you. And just making sure I don't forget anyone else. Thank you for the hostess, Marlea Romano. Yep. And the raffle, thank you, Chaya Bracha Cohen. And this is Rafi's daughter. What's her name? Thank you, Geula. And another friend behind the scenes, Sephora Bibian, who came and with her sister helped me do the water bottles and all the little details. So thank you. And the flowers, Susanna Hekmat, thank you. And Geula, thank you so much for sending dinner tonight. She called me at 4:30 while I was still here setting up and said, did you make dinner for your kids yet? I'm like, I'm still setting up. I was planning on calling and ordering out the next few Wednesday nights. And she's like, I'm going to order. And my kids were calling, Mommy, we're hungry. What's for dinner? I'm like, it's on its way. Thank you for thinking of my whole family. Not least, I have to thank my husband and my children, because without them, none of this is possible. My daughter Elisheva shot with me. She did a lot of the graphic designs with me. She helped me with the poems that I made, and she helped me with, and my kids helped me. And my husband really deserves a medal, because I don't think any husband in the world would allow a mannequin in the middle of the night wake up and see a mannequin of a Kohen Gadol in the bedroom. Okay, a mikvah built in his bedroom, a Beis HaMikdash, literally. Like I said, Hashem, now you just need to really bring the real mikdash. We deserve it. And I want to thank you guys all for coming. And tonight, on the schos of the Nashim Tzidkanias, Mashiach will come. I know it's Mesiras Nefesh, and in this schos, Mashiach will and must come. Thank you.
Amen.
Oh, one thing I forgot. My husband told me to make sure to tell everyone. Because of COVID, we didn't sign in the PAN the way we usually do. Please go right now on your cell phone to JewishEducationWorks.org. Those of you are on Zoom or Facebook Live, join. Those that are on Facebook Live and Zoom, please go to JewishEducationWorks.org. Click Taras HaMishpacha logo, which is the house that says Chachmas Hashem Ban Sabesa, and there's a link. And whoever joins the 4 classes, automatically their name goes into a raffle for a trip to New York. Yes,
Works.com.
.org. JewishEducationWorks.org. Mashiach now. Thank you.
Amen.
Is it on? It is on. Yeah.
No, the class is on Zoom, but what's the links?
So everyone go on JewishEducationWorks.org. JewishEducationWorks.org.
Where? This? Did it work for anyone?
Yeah. What do we do?
Yeah, it worked. Okay,
Where do I go? Where do I go? JewishEducationWorks.org. And the Taras HaMishpacha
better,
logo.
but more and more.
Okay, we're ready? Am I ready to start?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. First of all, thank you, Shirley, and thank you all of you for coming. I have to say, I have
Hold it a little
very hard time
closer
going
because
down
there's
today.
noise.
So I'm,
I hope it's gonna stop.
I'm gonna go as close as I could to the mic, even though it sounds like it's just a car that's gonna be leaving in a minute. Okay, so, oh my.
Are they what?
Okay, just-
Start,
Um,
start the.
okay. So I just want to thank everyone who set up over here and Berlin and Rula and everyone else. It's really, really very special. You know, I mean, I don't know about other communities, but I don't think
I don't know if they're doing it in purpose.
I don't think they do this like once a year to really get together and learn about Christ.
Oh my God.
Well, thank you. I don't think I could talk without music. Do you hear me if I talk over the music?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they thought we want music. Yeah, they probably keep it on music.
Well,
It's a low.
at least, you know, I can feel it again. So that's
Hello. Guys, we're having a women's event here. I need you to please keep it down right now. There's about 50 ladies sitting. Thank you. Thanks.
I think we should all go there.
Thank you so much. Thank you. At the end, we'll love music. Thank you.
okay. I just thought it was hashgacha pratis before I started. You were talking about, you know, being with the 8th graders and like not knowing what to say and quotes are Maraza. Mikvah.org is actually doing a class now, like a 3-class series on how to talk to your children about intimacy. And it's going to be with amazing teachers. So I'm just recommending if you cost money, but it's worth it. If you want to go online and see, I'm not exactly sure in January. I think they're starting in January. I think it's not.
I posted it on.
Okay,
on
so
Chat
I'm just giving, you know, also in general, I was trained by mikvah.org. I'm a college teacher, and they're an amazing resource. I don't know if people realize, if you go on mikvah.org, MIKVAH, you can get referrals anywhere in the world for any kind of specialty, and the calendar is on mikvah.org, which is also great, and there are so many resources. There's a slideshow that gives you the reviews of halachas. There's a lot of teachers teaching halachas, so just that you should know because it's a great resource to have as well. Okay. Now, also, I want to just start with what the Rebbe, the Hayom the Rebbe talks a lot about Tars and Shpach, and I guess maybe Berlin got some inspiration from that, like to put her whole life into it. But there's a few Hayom, but one of them is, I thought, a very special one. It's the duty of Hasidic wives and daughters, may they live and be well, to stand in the first rank of every activity dedicated to strengthening religion and Judaism in general, and particularly concerning Tars and Mishpacha. They must organize a society of Hasidic daughters to reinforce all the Hasidic practices concerning upbringing and education of children as prevalent from time immemorial in Hasidic thought. So this is the Hayom from Yud Shvat, and I'm sure this gives you a lot of inspiration. Also, the Hayom, oh no, this is not Hayom Yud Shvat. This is Hayom of Chaf Aleph Shvat. Of Yud Shvat, there's one last sentence that the last sentence of it is, it's an endeavor which literally saved lives. So this is something that really goes down to the essence, Tars and Shvat. Okay, so I was given 2 topics which I have to teach a lot of information, so I'm going to try my best to get all the halachas in and some inspiration, and hopefully we'll be able to get it done. So the first topic is what makes a woman a Nidah, and it's a woman comes a Nidah when it's the first. Do the ladies know that they can get the link on Zoom?
It's
Okay, so it's on Zoom. My notes are on Zoom. If you can't, you don't have to go onto it right now. But if you ever want, you want access to my class,
text it. I have it. Whoever wants to text
it,
it, I'll send it.
I can also email to you if you want after the class. Okay, so if you want access to it. But when blood leaves the uterus, the womb, even a tiny amount of blood, that makes you a Nidah. Okay, whether it's moist or dry, doesn't make a difference if it's a sensation or not. You become a Nidah. Now there's really one main way most of us become a Nidah when we get our period, but I have 10 ways over here. We'll go through it pretty quickly. Hopefully we'll get through it fast. So the first thing is your period. Re'iyah is seeing your period. So when you see blood from your period, you become a Nidah. You get a tiny amount of blood. The beginning of your period, if it starts light, and it always usually starts light, that makes you a Nidah, even if it's very light. If you know it's your period, if you know it's the time of your period, it feels like it's your period, you become a Nidah. Now, when I teach the college, I do tell them sometimes in the beginning of pregnancy, there could be a little bit of staining and bleeding. So if it doesn't turn into a period, it doesn't, you can ask a Rav Shaila afterward if you had stained anything that was a stain. But if it really feels like your period and it's the time of your period, it's probably your period. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is a bedika cloth. So a bedika cloth, any drop of blood on a bedika cloth, even a tiny, tiny drop, will make you a Nidah if the color is a color that's an usher color. Okay, that's why you never do bedikas unless you have to do it according to halacha. So if you need to do bedika because it's during Shivan Akim, you need to do bedika for your calendar days, you do it. Don't ever do it any other time. Okay, I spoke to Rabbi Shistaman, and I asked him, what should I tell the ladies? This is one of the things he says. I guess if he says it, that means it happens. Only do bedika when you need to do bedika according to halacha, or if a Rav tells you should do it. Otherwise, don't do it. Okay. The Nidah color in general, I mean, we say you don't have to ask a shai for white, clear, yellow. At a certain point, if you know the colors in the Rav say, you don't have to come back to this color or that color. But the shaila colors we say are orange, brown, pink, or if you know already this color is okay, and the Rav told you don't have to come back, you don't have to come back. Red and black is usually not okay, but I also heard from my sister a few years ago, and he said, sometimes red is okay. I heard him say that. So that's why, unless it's like a really bright red and it's part of your period, obviously you don't have to go. But if it's outside of your period, you can go and ask for Rav Shaila. Another thing he told me is that women shouldn't be machmir. You should go. It's not actually being machmir by saying, oh, whatever, it's just not going to be okay, and I'm not going to ask the Rav. It's the opposite of being machmir. The machmir way is to go to the Rav. Don't ever say, oh, I'm smarter than the Rav, either in being more machmir or more makel. Go to the Rav, okay, please. He said it concerns some bias, it concerns fertility a lot of time. The Rav is there to help us. I have more about the Rav soon about that. Also, make sure if you are going to ask the Rav Shaila, make sure it's dry, put it away in a safe place, and you can put it in an envelope, okay? If you think that the blood is coming from a wound that is not your uterus, if you did a bedika and you feel like maybe you have some wounds or there's different medical conditions that sometimes causes bleeding in the vaginal area, you can go to a bedekas. So behind the Siegel in LA is a bedekas. A bedekas is trained by, I guess, other bedekases, and they are in contact with the Rav. Okay, so a lot of times, if it's something that's not, if blood is not coming from the uterus but coming from somewhere else, it could be that it's okay. So that's the third thing. The second thing, the second way of becoming a Nidah is a bedika cloth. The third way is a kesem, a stain. Really, a stain has the most details of all of these. But what we learned is that the kesem is a blood that's outside of your period that you see, but it's the rabbanan. It's not the oraisa. So the bedika cloth and the bleeding from the period is the oraisa. But a stain, since it's outside of the period, the Rabbanim were the one that said you become a Nidah. Because of that, the Rabbanim try to make us that we're not tummy, that we're tahar. So there are three conditions, which I'm sure you've all learned how to Shpacha, you know. That is the color of the garment that the blood's going to be on. So we recommend you don't wear white unless it's your Shivan Akim. Even your linens and your sheets and your towels shouldn't be white, because why are we looking for problems? Number two is the size of the stain. So in contrast to the bedika cloth, where any size is a problem, this is about the gris, which is about the size of a dime, slightly smaller than a dime. And the last thing is the material or of the object where the stain is found, it has to be makabel tumah. So certain things like underwear and sheets and cotton and different things like that are makabel tumah, but some things are not makabel tumah, like paper, unwoven cotton, the ground, certain kind of pads. So sometimes a Rav will give a heter. I'm not to say to wear a pad at certain times of the month if someone has staining. So just these are the three conditions for a stain to be, for a stain not to be a problem. Okay, so it's either smaller than the size of a dime, uncolored underwear, or it's on a material that's not makabel tumah. Now, there are sometimes, and even in these three situations, you would still need to call a Rav. So you have to call a Rav if it's a time that your period's about to become, and you see it. Is expected. I tell the girls wait a day or two, see if your period's coming. Like if your period's coming, I don't know if you have to go to the Rav, but if it's more than a stain, but more like a leak, like you feel like it's continuous. If it keeps on happening, if it's a pattern, go call the Rav. If there's an unusual discharge, call the Rav. If it's right after an emotional or physical trauma, chas v'shalom, which shouldn't happen, call the Rav. If one felt fluid also leaving the body and then you saw a stain, also call the Rav. Okay, so there are really more complex issues with stains, and there's a lot of halakha. So in general, if you're not sure, call the Rav. The Rav is there to help you. The Rav is not out to get you. He wants to help you. Make sure you're comfortable with your Rav. If you're not comfortable with your Rav, get a Rav that you're comfortable with. You can talk to any Rav on the phone. If it's a Rav that you need to send a Mara to, it has to be local. But if not, find a Rav that you're comfortable talking to. Okay? The Alter Rebbe, in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, he says a woman is forbidden to remain in her days of Tumah. She must become Tahar as quickly as she's able to. Okay. Also, some other tips. If it's during the Shiv Nakim when you have to wear white and you see a little tiny stain and you're in a place where you could change, or you have another pair of underwear, change your underwear, because if it's less than the size of the dime, it's probably not a problem. Okay. So if it builds up, it could turn into the size of a dime. Okay. Also, if you have a lot of staining during the Shiv Nakim, even in the beginning of the Shiv Nakim, it happens all the time, speak to the Rav. The Rav might give you a heter, might give you different ways to make it easier for you, okay? Like he can tell you to wear a pad or to wear colored underwear, but you can't do it on your own. Okay, so that's the number 3. Number 4 is kinuach wiping. And this is something in particular that the Alter Rebbe is machmer about, is that when you wipe yourself and you look and you see something, it's considered like a bedika. Remember when I told you a bedika, even a drop will make you a Nidah if it's a color that's a color that's awesome. So in other places besides Chabad, they're not machmer on it. So basically, if you wipe yourself with a tissue, it's like a stain. But by us, since it's a bedika, don't look when you wipe yourself. And if you do look and you see something, don't throw it out. Save it and show it to the Rav. It's not something you want to do. So in general, don't look. Go to the bathroom with the light closed if you have a hard time. But if you do look, don't throw it out, because it's much harder for the Rav to give you a heter and say it's okay if you can't see it. Okay, so that's number 4. Also, if you see something, let's say you threw out the tissue, don't go and do a bedika, because the bedika doesn't help the situation. Even if you threw out the tissue, don't do a bedika, okay? I say it over and over again, because I have, because I teach the collars and I teach them certain things, and then they'll call me and I'm like, did you save the tissue? No, I threw it out. I'm like, oh, I forgot. Okay, but at least don't do the bedika if you throw it out. Okay, number 5. This is a feeling of Hagasha today. Most people don't feel it at all, but we mention it because it is a deraisa. Is in the olden days, women, like 200 years ago, women would feel the uterus opening and blood flowing from the uterus into the vagina. That is Hagasha. Today, most women do not feel this. It's not the feeling of blood flowing out of the vagina. It's not the feeling you feel like when you get your period. It's a different type of feeling. But if you do ever think that you are that 1 in a million person, speak to the Rav, okay? There's also uncertain Hagasha of blood flowing in the vagina, but that's today's day. Really, I have not met a woman yet who told me they feel Hagasha. Okay, number 6 is the opening of the womb. The opening of the womb is when a doctor will go and do a medical procedure that will go into the uterus. Okay. Now, in general, that will make you a Nidah. If the doctor goes into your uterus, it will make you a Nidah, but still, in general, speak to the Rav before or after if you're not sure. Maybe you're having a procedure that you didn't even know about. But an internal exam with the hands on its own, like the doctor just checking you, also is usually okay. And also a pap smear speculum is usually okay, but still just speak to your Rav. I don't want to for sure paskin on this, but in general, what I heard from Rosh Hashanah was okay. In general, if it's possible to schedule your doctor's appointments at the time that's like either you need the time or right before, at the end of you need the time, at the beginning of the Shiv Nakim, it's probably the best time, just in case you need something that, hopefully you won't, but that will go into the uterus. But if you need a doctor's appointment, don't push it off, because if you can't get the right appointment, because it's more important to get the medical attention if you need it. Okay. Also, most opinions say that the insertion or the taking out of an IUD will make you a Nidah. An IUD is just a form of birth control that goes inside the uterus. Just as a side note, if someone does need birth control, speak to a Rav. You can't just take birth control without speaking to the Rav, and also which method of birth control. In general, I also would like to mention just practical tips. There's an organization called THLA, which is an amazing organization, deals with all kinds of women's issues. If you need a birth control for any physical or emotional issues and you get a heter from a Rav, you could speak to them, because there's different types of birth control. Some give more staining, some less. Like there's an IUD, which has hormones in it, and that causes tons and tons and tons of staining. I forgot which type it's called. They don't recommend it. So rather, if you do need an IUD, get the IUD that doesn't have the hormone in it, because you don't want to have lots of staining, even though eventually it stops the bleeding, but it's not worth it to have staining for 10 months. If it's gonna still, but THLA is online. They're a free organization that doesn't charge you to call them. Just look up their number. They usually call you back from Israel. They take a message and call you. So you see an Israeli number, pick up the phone if you call them. But they really deal with any kind of women's issues, not only birth control, any kind of women's issues. And the one thing, they have an email, but from my experience, they don't always answer the email. So just call them and they'll call you back. And they're always very, very helpful. Okay. They can also help collars if collars need help before they get married. Okay. That was number 6. Number 7 is her word. Since the women are completely trusted, and we don't have to show anything to anyone. We don't have to show our bedikas and to our husband and say, look, is this good or not? Now, of course, if you have a shiloh, you have a shiloh, but we are trusted that we do the hefzekah. We're trusted that we keep that, we do the bedikas and the shevnikiyim, that we go to the mikveh. Because of that, if you say you're a Nidah, you are a Nidah. So don't ever say you're Nidah unless you know for sure you are a Nidah. Now, if you're unsure, you could say, I'm not sure. For sure, don't say it if you're upset at your husband, chas v'shalom, in anger or in jest. Say you're Nidah. You would have to call a Rav if you would chas v'shalom say that I'm tummy when you really aren't tummy. If you say I think I got my period, that means I'm not sure yet, right? You said I think. Okay, as long as you say I think, it's okay.
And what if you say you are and then realize after you're not?
You'll have to talk to a Rav because your word is trusted. Don't say you're for sure unless you are for sure, no for sure. Okay, and we all know when it's for sure. Okay, number 8 is labor. So as soon as you need assistance, so it's not in like you really need assistance or need a lie in the bed we're going to give birth, you become a need. Okay, at that point, also if one's water broke, but there was no blood, he shows you don't become a need. If you do see blood, you might be a need. At that point, you can ask her up. Also, just as a side, again, as a side note, which I think is important to know, a doctor's internal exam at the end of your pregnancy, could be in the beginning of your 9th month, they decide to do an internal exam, could cause you to become a need. Do not do it unless it's medically necessary. If it's medically necessary, obviously you can have it. But if it's just like, oh, you're curious how dilated you are, it's not worth it, because why would you want to become a Nidah once you go into labor, you can be a Nidah for about 6 weeks or, around that time. So you don't want to add to the Nidah time. So unless it's medically necessary, do not have a doctor's exam or a midwife's exam, internal exam at the end of your pregnancy. Also, if let's say someone goes into labor and there's no one besides their husband, let's say it's an intense labor, there's no one besides their husband to help him to get to the car or to whatever, he can help you in a limited way. But at that point, you really are in Nidah. But if there's no one else to help you, he can help you. Yeah.
Wait, are you saying that if a doctor checks you in your 9th month, if you're dilated, that makes you a Nidah?
No, it's possible it could cause complications at the end of a pregnancy, and I've heard this from many different sources already. Not always. Those are called, yes, it could cause bleeding. You're very dilated.
If you don't bleed and you're dilated, you're not a Nidah.
No, if there's no blood, it's okay. But I have from experience, a lot of times, doctor will do an exam and then they'll say, oh, I see some blood. It's because you're very sensitive at that point already. Even if you aren't in labor yet, your body's getting ready for labor, right? The cervix is starting to stretch. So all that area is very, very sensitive. Now it could be some people don't have that issue, but other people do. And if the doctor says, I see blood, it's a problem, and it could make you a Nidah, you have to speak to a Rav about it. Okay?
If the doctor says that he sees blood,
Yeah.
and then you don't look, and
But
then
the doctor says he sees blood, it's a problem.
but then you look and you don't see blood.
I know, but the doctor made the exam and saw blood. The exam is inside of you, and it's coming from that area. So
it's like you have to
problem.
trust what the doctor. I'm saying.
I mean, a doctor. Only a from doctor is really trustworthy. But even if it's not a from doctor, if he saw blood, you could really only trust a from doctor to say I didn't see blood. But if it's not from doctor said I saw blood, then it's like, or not Jewish doctor, then it's a problem. I just know it's a problem. It could cause lots of problems, and people don't know this. So that's why I mention it. So just if you need the exam, have the exam. But if you don't need the exam, and you can ask a Rav even before. You can call the Rav and say, I have to have an exam. Is it okay if I tell the doctor not to tell me what he sees?
Let's say
I don't know. That I don't know the answer to. But it might be, so you can ask the Rav before you go to the doctor. Because let's say you do need it for a medical reason.
But also, wouldn't it just be cervical blood at that point, which wouldn't be an issue?
Blood from that area is a problem. So I'm saying, I don't know. I'm not sure. I just know that it causes problems. I know that it causes problems. And Rabbanim sometimes will have to paskin that you're in Nidah. Okay. So
You
it's
always have
unless,
an option to go to Bodekis if you're not sure where the blood came from.
Right, but saying don't get yourself into problems if you
No,
don't
no,
need
no,
it.
sure.
Like if you don't.
But I'm saying
Yeah.
in case something happens, let's say we have the 9 months.
after, I'm saying you can ask the Rav, can I go to the Bedekas and she can see where the blood's coming from? You can ask. I don't know. I'm just saying, if you don't need it, if it's just for your own curiosity, it doesn't make the labor go faster if you know you dilated 2 or 3 centimeters. I promise you that. When the baby's ready to come, it's going to come. What I'm saying is if you don't need it, you don't have to do it. Okay? That's the main idea. That's what I wanted to mention. Okay. Number 9 is miscarriage. I could also make you need it when you miscarry. Hopefully nobody does. Mashiach will come already. We're heading in Mashiach's time over here. I said she made this theme, first of all, because my husband's just talking about Mashiach. Plus, my husband's a Kayan. So I got the Mashiach day, the Beis Hamikdash and Mashiach, and then, it says what the Kayan Gadol, he davens, and Erev Yom Kippur, that woman should miscarry, but if someone does, that put someone into Nidah, state, and also there are organizations in New York that help, and you should get your support, emotional support, physical support, make sure you're doing the right thing that you need, and just that you should know, it's just a side point, if it's after 40 days, mikvah night, the fetus does need to have a Fruma, so be in touch with the Rav. So it's 40 days from mikvah night. That's how you figure it out. If you're not sure about the date, also speak to a Rav. Yeah. Someone had a question? It's 40 days from mikvah night is how. So basically, the fetus is not considered a child according to halacha until it's 40 days. After 40 days, it's considered a baby already. After 40 days, it's not. So after 40 days, it needs a kura. But again, if you're not sure about the date, ask the Rav. Okay, number 10 is childbirth. Childbirth and labor turns you into a Nidah, but childbirth continues that and makes you a Nidah. You're a Nidah for approximately 4 to 6 weeks, as long as you're bleeding, and all the halachas apply before, during, and after birth. Also, the Rebbe was very not for husbands being in the room. If someone, when you're giving birth, at the time you're giving birth, but if someone really needs it, speak to your Rebbe. It's like you really feel like you need your husband on the other side of the curtain. But the Rebbe really felt that the husband should be saying Tehillim in another room. Okay. Any questions so far in this? Yeah.
Even like behind the curtain, that was like specifically a thing. I'm just curious.
I don't have the source, but I do know. I
always thought just because of CS issues.
Yes, because it's CS issues, you shouldn't be doing. But besides the curtain, if a woman's in having an active labor, having a baby, and she doesn't have an epidural, she's not in control of herself. She could be screaming, you don't know what she's saying. So it's not only that. It's not only the tznius. I think that's what I'm thinking. Because if it's outside the curtain, what's he seeing? He's not seeing anything. So I think it might be more like the woman loses her dignity to a certain degree at that point. So I just know it happened to me only one time that the epidural didn't work, and you lose your dignity. So you don't even know what you're saying. You're screaming. You're like so. So it like protects. I mean, you don't really want your husband. I don't know. I don't think you want your husband in the room if you're at that point. Okay. So I just went through this really, really fast because I wanted to get to the halachas of halachas, which are even more halachas. But before we continue on to that, does anyone have any questions here besides what you all asked me? Is everything clear? Yes.
Is it against halacha to have white sheets?
No, it's not against halacha, but why are you looking for problems? It's not against halacha. It's just, it could cause issues. So why are you looking for issues? So it's if let's say you never, ever have
No, like if you never come to those issues,
then I mean, it's a recommendation. Right. Why do you have to get into those issues? But if you never ever have staining outside of your period, maybe when you get things change in your body, there's always differences. If you see a certain time in your life, things are changing. Get gray sheets instead of the white sheets. But it's not against halacha.
Is cream not white?
Everything besides white is not white. Even beige is not white. Yeah. White is white and everything else is not white. Okay. Also, if anyone, yes.
You mentioned before that if someone has a miscarriage after 40 days, they have to bury it. So if, let's say someone has a DNC.
So even I think there's still something coming out if there's a DNC.
Yeah.
Whatever comes out, I don't.
They ask.
You have to ask her Rav. Ask her. No. So if, again,
not like there was never anything there.
There's something there. Even with the DNC, they're scraping it out. They're taking it out. So there's something. If it's more than 40 days, speak to a Rav and see what the Rav says. Okay, I mean, this is how I learned. This is how I learned it. So if it didn't happen, it didn't happen. Okay, are we ready to move on? Yeah.
If you said the quinoa is a problem according to the Alter Rebbe, so but you said also that toilet paper does not take any staining. So how do you explain?
So the Alter Rebbe feels like it doesn't make a difference if it's toilet paper or not, because toilet paper only applies to a stain. The Alter Rebbe feels like wiping yourself is like a bedika. That means because you're going inside a little bit, even inside the vaginal canal when you wipe yourself. You go into that area. And basically it can't really be coming from anywhere else besides that area. Now it could be coming from the vagina itself, and the vagina itself is not an issue. It's the uterus that's the issue. So if you think you have an issue, something coming from the vagina, you go to a bedekes. But still, it's only the out. See, the other rabbanim besides the Alter Rebbe, they say, oh, it's tissue paper. You could throw it out. It's not makabel tumah, right? So, but the Alter Rebbe doesn't apply. It's like a bedika.
What
And
if
the bedika doesn't have exception. There's no exceptions. Yeah.
What if you know it's from the backside?
If you know for sure, it's probably okay. But still speaking, if you know for sure.
Can you know for sure? Because they're
If you know someone has hemorrhoids or someone has bleeding from there, then you speak to the Rav and say, I'm almost sure it's coming from there. But in general, that's why. I mean, I once heard a doctor say, listen, if you never look at, you don't see what's going on with your body. You don't know, and sometimes you really do need to know what's going on. So, I mean, that was a doctor that wasn't, she was a frum lady, but she wasn't Chabad, but, and she knows that the Chabad Rabbanim and the Chabad teachers say don't look. But usually if something's going on in your body, you do know. So, if you sense it, then look, because it's important, and then talk to the Rav afterwards, okay? Anything else? Okay, so we're gonna move on now to Hachakas. Now, Hachakas are a hard part of our Taras Mishpacha, but this is the halacha. It's all a chayk, and we know that Hashem knows what's best for us. Hashem created the system, and He knows what we need. So that's the bottom line. So as much as we do see beauty, and sometimes it's really, really beautiful, but after the mikvah night, but those 12 or 13 or 14 days that we're in Nidah are really, really hard. We sometimes have to go back to the fact that it's just this is what Hashem wants, and that's it. Hashem, and Hashem knows that we are Shemayim. Hashem knows we keep the halachas because He gave it to us. So even if it's hard, we're going to do it. Okay. Now, when we are careful with halachas, we do see the beauty and the holiness in our relationship. So the more careful we are, the more beautiful our relationship with our husbands will be, and that's what the Rebbe tells us. The Rebbe says, "As men is none them that's on vard, that means on vard. I know Yiddish, and I'm like, that means on darf and that's on none. So if you're going to be far when you need to be close, to be close when you need to be far, you'll be far when you need to be close. And the opposite's also true. When you're far when you need to be far, you'll be close when you need to be close. Now, far doesn't mean goodbye, my husband. I'm not going to see you now for 12, 13, 14 days. No, you have a relationship with your husband. You talk to him, you're friends with him, do things with him that are okay according to halacha. I had one lady I taught, and she told me that when she's in Nidah, they only have one bed. She's not Chabad. She only has one bed, so she just goes to another bedroom, and it really bothered me. But I don't know. I have to figure out how to tell her that I really don't like that. Like, let's figure out a way to get another bed in the bedroom. But so we're there for each other in a different way, and then when we come back together after the mikvah, it's just more beautiful, more special. I just heard a class from Mrs. Rifki Slanet, and I really thought this was very, very special. She was saying how, like, she teaches non for people, and some of them, they could be, we all have a body and a soul. They could be looking at me as if I'm this major Rebbetzin, but I'm like really not this major Rebbe. Like, I know what I am, and I'm thinking the same thing. Yeah, I was brought up this way. I do these things because this is what I was taught, and I know it's true and I know it's right, but doesn't make me into this major Rebbetzin. I know I have my issues. Everyone knows I have their issues. Like, like when I'm hungry, I'm really hungry and I want that food. When I have to daven, I'm not that urgently excited about davening. I know I have to daven at a certain time. When I'm hungry, I really, really, really want to eat that food. So we still are in a place before Mashiach comes, I guess, that our bodies are more important than our souls. So what she was explaining was, if someone goes into anaphylactic shock when they eat peanuts, right? They are so super vigilant about eating peanuts. If they go to someone's house, they make sure there's no peanut oil, there's no peanut anywhere in their house. Otherwise, they're not eating it because they know who knows what might happen. And they, so they're super careful. The same thing is with the surgeon. Before a surgeon makes the surgery, he's going to wash his hands and his nails up his elbows. And on top of that, someone else is going to put gloves on him and a coat and a mask. And who knows how many layers today's day, right? They have probably another 6 layers. Why? Why are they so careful? Because they don't want to hurt anyone else's body. So too, our souls are also super important. We just don't feel it so much. So the reason we are getting all these halachas is because this is so important for us. And it is Isserkaris if it's a relationship when you're a Nidah, and that's the reason why we have all these extra halakas. Really, a relationship between a husband and wife should make you have to keep the laws of Yichud, because it's not a kosher relationship when you're a Nidah, but because it's not practical, the Chacham like, we're gonna have to live in 2 different houses if there's no kids around. So because of that, the Chacham added on the hachakas. So hachakas only apply between husband and wife, does not apply between you and any other man in the world. Okay, so I'm gonna start now with the halachas. So the Isserkaris is hugging, kissing, affection, and touch, and obviously the intimate relationship. The Rabbanan are all the laws of hachakas that we're going to learn today. These are all the Rabbanan. Now, in general, most halachas, or many halachas that we keep, especially Hilchos Shabbos, many of them are the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan is part of the halacha. It's not like, this is the right, so this I don't do. But the Rabbanan, I'm not so careful. The Rabbanan is today's day it always is just as important. The difference is the punishment, but we keep it at just as we keep the regular halachas. Also, before we go through the halachas, other situations they also have to keep the halachas of Nidah are Yom Kippur. You're Nidah for those 25 hours, 24 hours, whatever it is, by day and by night, even though Yom Kippur is anyway you're in shul all day, or at least your husband's in shul all day. Tisha B'Av, everyone says at night you keep din harchaka, but some people say it by day as well, so ask your own Rav. Shiva shouldn't come to that. You keep the din harchakas, and also if you have a shaila, until you know the answer, you have to keep all din harchakas. So even if you think it might be okay, you keep all din harchakas. Also, some people have the minhag, and this is a minhag, it's not halacha, so that's what I let you know, not to hand anything over in public. This is because they feel like, why should anyone know my status, where I'm holding? But again, it's actually called minhag beis harav, and if you do it beautiful, it's not halacha. Also, as soon as you become a Nidah, you must inform your husband that you're a Nidah. So text him if you need to, or let him know. A public displays of affection is against halacha, so that's not like handing something over to your husband's not against halacha, but a public display of affection is. Okay, so we're going to go through the 5 senses now. I know many of you probably had corona, and so did I. Not completely lost my sense of taste, but my coffee tasted so bitter, and I really need that coffee in the morning, so I forced myself to drink it, and I'm like, taste is important, and each of these senses are so important. When you don't have it, you miss it. So we're going to go through the senses, and we see all the things that we're not allowed to do or in Nidah when we are allowed to do or not in Nidah. That brings us closer together, and how special all our senses are. So the first thing is touch, which is huge in relationships. So all touch is forbidden between husband and wife. Your clothing shouldn't touch. If you're walking next to each other, your coat shouldn't be flapping and touching each other. If I'm holding a purse, my husband can't stick his hand into my purse even if I don't feel him. So it's not only the touch, but it's the energy that I would feel from my husband sticking his hand into my purse. Now, extended touching. So even if something's really long, a tablecloth, a broom, you can pass the baby, anything that's extended touch. Now, when the baby's sleeping on the bed, when you're on the bed and you want your husband to give you the baby, you could actually move the blanket over. He's allowed to put it on the flat sheet. Okay, so the baby can put it on the flat sheet because you're not going to feel the movement of the blanket. The flat sheet doesn't move. You're also both allowed to touch a non-moving item. So like this thing, it moves, and we can't both touch it. But if it's a table that doesn't move, I could put my hand on it, and my husband could put my hand on it.
Ask a question?
Yes.
About the baby, once they get older and they're able to
they
reach
jump
for
to you.
Then are
Even if they jump to you, you're not allowed to let them go to the other person because you're still feeling each other's energy. If sometimes something happens and it just like you forget for a second, the kid just ends up in your hand. Okay, it happened. We try to be as careful as possible. And we can't walk around feeling guilty for the rest of the day or whatever. You move past it and you say, try my best that this doesn't happen again. But you don't have to obsess about it. Yeah.
What if, let's say, your husband is holding the baby and you want to feed the baby?
So that is a problem. Feeding the baby when one is holding is a problem. The only thing in halacha that I saw that's okay is if you need to give the baby medicine. So the only way the medicine is going down that baby's mouth is one person holds the baby down and the other person sticks the medicine in. And even in that case, be careful not to touch each other. But feeding the baby, just put the baby in the high chair. I don't know if there's an exception to feeding the baby because you do feel each other's energy when one is feeding the baby. Even putting a pacifier in the baby's mouth, it says is not okay. Sitting, if let's say it's a couch with three cushions, you don't feel each other's movement, you can each sit on your own cushion. If it's a bench that's not moving, it's okay, but if it's a swing or something that's moving, it's a problem. Yeah.
What happens if you have like a Shabbos table and tablecloth and the tablecloth on your lap and it's on his lap?
Oh.
Question.
It is a good question because you can feel each other. So like
chairs back a little bit.
Yeah, I guess in your own house.
You're at a
don't
guest
have
at
such
someone's
right.
house.
I know my tablecloth's not that long in my house. I know, what's happened to me, and I did feel my husband like if you were both sitting next to each other and the table was on your lap. So I guess move your chair back a little and have the tablecloth go in front of your feet instead of like on your feet.
I have another question.
Yes.
So this is like something that's like highly impossible to go around, but sometimes like you might have like a step in your house that like the entire floor shakes, or like I don't know, you're walking and it's stomping and you actually feel it, but like there's nothing you could really.
I don't think there's any. I mean, unless you can fix it.
I don't know.
If you can't fix it, I don't know. I can't. I don't know. Maybe ask your Rav if you want. Yes.
Can you move the table together?
No, you can't move the table or put the tablecloth together on, even if it's a very, very long table.
And even if it's heavy.
Even if it's heavy, you can't move it together. No, you may have someone else do it. You just can't do it at all. Okay. Yes.
So if I'm under my blanket because it's cold, and the baby wakes up so he's allowed to put the baby
not on your blanket that's on top of you, but you can move the blanket over and on the
to make sure the blanket's not touching me.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Thank
So you're moving the blanket, so he's not going to be putting the baby on the blanket, but just on the flat sheet. So move
but
over
I'm on
a
the
little
flat sheet. Is that okay?
You're on the flat sheet, but the flat sheet doesn't move, but the blanket moves. So you don't really feel the energy of the baby on the flat sheet, but on the blanket, yeah.
Also, the blanket's like your clothing, and
Yes,
the flat
it's on
sheet's like
top
the
of you.
floor. It's like
Right.
you're standing on
Yeah.
something. That's
Yeah.
the same.
That's right. That's
What
another good example.
What if someone needs assistance? Like, let's say they're really
Okay, so
sick.
if someone's sick, then that's a different thing. It's actually easier for the wife to help the husband when the husband's sick than for the husband to help the wife. But if there's no one else around and she needs help, he's allowed to help her in the most limited way possible. So whatever she needs in a limited way, she could help in a more obvious way than he could help her. In general, we're going to go through different things. It's more, certain things are more strict on the wife because the husband can't see, but there's differences between the husband and wife. Because in general, it's harder for the man, and for the man, he could come to sin. For a woman, there's no sin the thought is not really a sin, even if I'm thinking about my husband.
If
So,
someone really, really needs help. My husband called the Rebbetzin. He's like, use your safe help. Like, don't think of it. Like, just go and help.
yeah, if someone really needs help, if it's an emergency, koach nefesh, there's no question, right? But if it's like, oh, I'm sick and it's just hard for me to do something, so you each have to gauge how much help the other one needs. But if there's someone else that could do it in the house, like a kid in the house, then just have the kid do it. Okay, the beds need the distance between the beds should be far enough that if a blanket falls off the bed, it won't touch each other. It's about 19 inches. It's also a well-known minute that there's a nightstand in between the two beds. It doesn't have to be a nightstand. In a bedroom, it just makes sense that there's a nightstand. You want the nightstand there. So if you end up in someone's house, there's only two beds without a nightstand. It's okay as long as the beds are far enough apart. Also, the beds shouldn't be connected with one common headboard. There should be two headboards. And the beds, the only time you can't make the bed in each other's presence is for night use. So in the morning, if my husband's in the room and I want to make his bed, it's okay. But for night use, so like when you go to a hotel, most people don't do this in their houses. I don't think you pull the blanket down, you put a nice chocolate in a very fancy hotel. So that would be forbidden in his presence. That's the only thing that's forbidden. You're allowed to change the linen or make the beds in each other's presence. Okay. Then also the other difference between husband and wife is the wife could sit on the husband's bed in his presence, so she could sit down. if let's say the baby's sleeping in your bed and you don't want to wake up the baby, so you sit on your husband's bed, he's not allowed to sit on your bed at all during your Nidah time. Yes.
When you're saying about the nightstand,
Yes.
was it something like Beinayhem, like no matter what, should be something like if you're in someone's house, maybe put a chair, or there should be, isn't there something
Well,
something in between the beds?
It could be, it's possible. I never saw that. I saw that it's a minhag to have a nightstand, but it could be that's also a minhag.
So like something
right.
between it.
It could be that's a minhag.
But if your two hands go like this, you can't touch each other.
Right.
So 19 inches
Yes.
that you said.
Wait,
But I thought it was like
19
actually something had to be there. Like if you don't have a nightstand,
Right.
it's temporary,
So
but like a
I'm
chair or a
I'm gonna
stool or
look it up,
something.
and if it is, I'm gonna add it.
If of course they didn't say that.
Yes, I never heard that. I never heard that. So, but if you heard that from some source,
Something about Beinayhem, like Sheena String Beinayhem.
Again, I never heard that, but it's possible it's written somewhere. And if it
I
is,
don't know where I heard. I don't know where.
if it is, it's
for
a
sure
minhag, because the
midnight.
nightstand is also a minhag. Yeah.
Wait, you sure you're allowed to sit in your husband's bed in his presence?
Yes, you're
but
not
not
allowed
lie
to
down.
lie in his bed. You can't lay down in his bed,
Not
but
while
you
he's
can
there.
sit in his
Sit
bed
on
in his
his bed,
presence,
in
so
his
you can't lay down in
Not
his
when he's on
presence.
the bed.
But if he's not in the house, it's he left, and the baby's sleeping in your bed, or you're changing your linen, you want to go to sleep in his bed, you could. If he's not home,
But if he's there in the room, you can sit on
you
his
can't
bed.
lay in his bed, but you can sit in his bed.
I thought
He
you said-
cannot sit on your bed or lay in your bed the whole time you're in either, but you could sit on his bed in his presence. That's the first difference from
You're
so
allowed to
far.
change the sheets in front of him?
You can change the seats. The only thing you can do is prepare the bed for night use. Preparing the bed for night use is what's
Could
forbidden.
he walk?
But let's say someone never makes their beds, but their husband just like to go to sleep at night. So all of a sudden, quickly before he goes to sleep, that's when she's gonna make her bed. That's preparing her for night use. Okay, yeah.
If you wash the linen before Shabbos and you didn't have time to put the linen on the bed and you're doing something else and you're not in the room, could he put the linen
You
on?
could, yeah, he could put it on. You could also be in the room, changing the linen. You could be in each other's presence. Only preparing the bed for night use, so you can't be in each other's presence. Okay. Now rides and walks. So for sure you can take a walk together for health reasons. What's forbidden is a pleasure ride with no destination. So I'm just going to take a drive down the Pacific, the one, right? Just taking a nice drive is not allowed. But if you're going somewhere and on the way you happen to be going down a nice mountainous road, that's okay. Okay, so as long as you're going to a destination, it's okay. A hike, and definitely in a well-known hikes where lots of people are, you can go. Again, just when you're walking next to your husband, be careful not to touch each other. Also on an airplane, if it's possible, one second, I'm gonna finish. Try not to get seats next to each other, but if you do, just be very, very careful. It's possible on an airplane. I know when I'm sitting next to a strange man on an airplane, I'm not touching him, right? So I'm sitting like that. So it's possible. Now, if it's not, like, if you can get two aisle seats, it's okay. One time my husband and we decided to get a middle and an aisle seat, and a lady sat down the middle, and she's like, oh, you don't want to sit next to each other? She realized, like, it's okay. He likes the aisle, I like the window, we're gonna sit like this. So, I mean, but a bus which moves, right? So the bus moves and it shakes, so it's possible to fall on each other, that you shouldn't really be sitting next to each other. Yeah.
We asked the Rav about the hike.
Yeah.
The Rav said we should not go on a hike.
Okay, so
But
there
he
are
said if we do, we should take a kid with us. That way it won't be just us.
Okay, so there are different opinions. I heard many different opinions about hikes. I heard some from one person who said you can go on any hike. Some person says that you can only go on well-known hikes where lots of people are. And your Rav says don't go on a hike, only take a kid along. Ask your own Rav about your hike that you want to go with your husband, okay? So that will be, now boating in general is not allowed. First of all, a boat is rickety, right? Also, if you're just going on a pleasure boat ride, even if it's not rickety, if it's a motorboat, it's a pleasure. But if you're going somewhere to destination, it's a ferry, and you're going somewhere, it's okay.
What if it's a Chalamite trip with all your kids?
If it's all your kids, it's okay. It's just you and your husband alone.
If you're not allowed to go on a date during.
You can go on a date. You can't go on a boat ride. Just you and your
No,
husband.
because you mentioned pleasure. So
No,
just
I
to
didn't
go
say
out.
pleasure. When did I say pleasure? What did I say? I said a
No, you said
pleasure
a
boat
boat
ride. A
ride,
pleasure
yeah.
boat ride.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
So yes, you can go out with your husband when you're in either, but not to. First of all, you have to go to a destination, right? So not just on a ride, not just on a boat ride. Now, if the boat is going somewhere, let's say, I know in Seattle there's lots of ferries. So if you want to go somewhere, you have to go down to the ferry. You're going somewhere. It's okay. You can go on the ferry. Yes.
What about going, especially with Fruma, there isn't many places to go for a date night. What if we just want to go for a drive?
So ask your Rav if you just, let's say, I know there's a lot of exceptions to this. And in general, when you need that, it's vacation time, whatever, ask your Rav, I'll tell you why. Because this is very, very important, especially now, it's very important to get out. And there's nowhere to go. And it's important for your mental health. Your Rav might say it's okay. In general, before Corona, I would tell you, find a place to go. Just go bowling, and go
Right, but
wherever.
now there's
There's
a lot of
nowhere to
stuff.
go, right? So just ask your Rav, because if it's important for your mental health, you might say it's okay. In general, try to schedule vacation times, not when you're in either, but sometimes it just happens. You have no other vacation time to even go. This is your husband's only time you can get away, or something happens and you thought it would be okay, it's not okay. Ask your Rav what you could do. Okay, so that's touch. We went into vacation as well. Number 2 is smell. Again, we all know the importance of smell. If you lose your sense of smell, you really, really miss it. And in this situation, there's only one way that it applies is the husband can't smell his wife's perfume. You could smell, if he likes to wear perfume, cologne, whatever, you could smell his perfume. So if you really like to wear perfume, just have a little sample, and when you get to the hospital, put it on. But if you can go in the car with him and they'll smell your perfume, don't put it on. Okay, he's not even smell your perfume if you have a signature perfume, if it's not on you. Number 3 is hearing. Okay, so this again, your husband can hear you singing, but you could hear him singing. However, if it's singing to the kids, putting them to sleep, saying Shema, benching with them, davening with them, it's okay. Also, if the baby doesn't calm down without you singing to the baby, you could sing to the baby. Musical instruments that you play, if it's for your own pleasure, it's okay. If you're playing for him, you're making him a concert, it's not okay. Okay. No, as long as it's for your own pleasure and you like to play, you can play every single night.
What about a recording of you singing?
Recording of you singing? He's not listening to any woman singing. So if you're a Nidah, I guess he shouldn't be singing, listening to you. I don't know. Ask your Rav. I don't know this. I never heard this question before. But if he's not listening to any woman singing, then I guess when you're a Nidah, he shouldn't hear you singing as well. Even if you, let's say you recorded it when you were in a Nidah. I don't know. Ask your Rav. So number 4 is sight. Okay, so sight is a big deal, especially for the husband. Men are more visual, women are more, we need the hearing to stimulate us, but men need the visual. So we should be extra careful to be tznius at this time. The husband's not allowed to look at any part of the wife's body that's normally covered. Now, really, it's the husband's responsibility not to look at you. However, like what? You're going to walk around whatever and tell your husband, don't look at me? So we know it's hard for our husbands. We want to help them, and being extra careful, just be extra careful, be sensitive to your husband, make sure your nightgowns not sheer or whatever you want to wear. If you wear pajamas and put a skirt on top, but make sure you're covered. If you're under your blanket and you want to whatever, wear pajamas, it's okay. If he's sleeping at night and you want to go to the bathroom, it's okay. Just when he's around, be careful to be extra careful.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I think some non-Chabad people,
Yes. I actually heard this for the first time.
they could be
I'm
naked
teaching
in
a
front of their
college.
husband.
I'm not naked,
No?
but I'm teaching a college who's not Chabad, and she was actually talking to her other Rebbetzin, and I never heard this before. She told me, she said that if you're wearing sweatpants, it's okay because that's not a big deal for your husband to see you in sweatpants. So I told her, listen, you came to me as a college teacher. You could do whatever you want, but this is the best way to do it. And this is for sure the whole, really, we're really supposed to be tznius all the time. And we're in front of God all the time. Really, the only place it says you should get undressed is in the bathroom. Some people say it extends to the bedroom, and so of course we all have our levels, but I think it's a privilege to help my husband at this time. Why should I make it more difficult than it's hard enough? So I'm going to be extra careful. Also, don't wear excessive makeup. You don't have to wear less makeup than usual. Don't make yourself look extra beautiful at a time when you can't be together with him. Okay. Also, the rules of tznius apply to anyone. This is not only with your husband. We should be tznius all the time and in all places, and this brings lots and lots of brachos to our family. Hair covering is also super important in public. Your hair should be completely covered, obviously. The Rebbe also said that you should wear a sheitel in public. There's a tefach myth. Some people say, you can have a tefach hair showing. Part of it comes from the Gemara. There's one opinion of the Gemara that says that you can show a tefach of hair, but the Tzemach Tzedek paskins that no hair should be shown, even your own house. So there's no real heter. There's also Moshe Feinstein used in the times when the 1900s, when there's no woman ever covered her hair. So somebody came and asked him if he can marry a woman whose hair is showing, and he said yes. He wouldn't paskin like that today's day. It's super important to keep our hair covered. The Rebbe gives us so many brachos for keeping our hair covered. And really, Al Pei Midas HaKimchas, which is according to Kabbalah, and if it gives brachos for children and everything special for your family. Your hair should be covered at all time. If it's necessary for intimacy to uncover your hair, if your husband wants to see your hair, it's okay. Really, at the time of the physical act of the marital relation at that point, if it's possible, cover your hair because it is a very holy time. Okay. The last one we have is taste, but taste is a big one. So if you're going to be sitting with your husband, eating is intimate. I know if I'm going to go to a restaurant, I'm not going to sit at a table with someone else, even though some restaurants have these tables or someone, a bunch of people sitting on it. I can never be comfortable sitting next to someone I don't know. You sit there and you eat with people that you know and you want to sit and eat with. Because of that, when you're sitting and eating with your husband, you need to have a simon hecker, something in between the two of you. And this has to be in between the two of you. And this is anytime the two of you are eating together. So only one of you is eating. If you ate before your husband came home later, you don't have to. You just want to sit with him while he's eating. You don't have to have a simon hecker. What is a simon hecker? So number one, it could be a special placemat, special tablecloth. You could even fold the tablecloth over. That's number one. Number two, it could be food that you're not eating. So if you're at a restaurant and there's a bread basket in the middle of the table that you know you're not going to eat bread, that could be your hecker. And C, it has to be significant height. So it can't just be your cell phone in between the two of you. Now, if you're going to pick up your cell phone when you have a stand, it might be okay. Or one single key between the two is not okay. It has to have some significant height, even though the placemat doesn't have any height, but the placemat's under your plate and it's different than what you're usually doing. Okay? A napkin, I think if it's going to be under your table, I think it's okay. Thank you.
Is there any Inyan of like trying to be discreet about it? Because like
yes, you should in general. We're discreet about parts of the stuff.
However, but like if you're with your married friends and your husband's there and you put a napkin under your plate.
So your napkin will be when it's just the two of you. Okay, you don't have it doesn't.
They keep
you don't have to be discreet, but you could try. Okay, you try to be discreet in general.
Not to do it,
but it's not an excuse to say, oh, someone's going to see a hecker between the two of us, so I'm not going to do it. So because they're going to see the hecker. So that's not an excuse. You're saying you still try to be as discreet as possible, but
it's just so annoying to like try to get my husband's attention during the
okay,
meal.
now
All these
actually you don't have.
Like,
okay, you should know. I just saw this recently. If you can't get your husband's attention, you take care of yourself. That means you put a hecker between the two of you. He has to take care of himself. You could tell this then before. You could tell him. I learned this halacha. You don't have to have the same hecker. As long as you know this is my hecker, he can have this hecker. It might be the same hecker that you put down.
So
he might decide. It says, it actually says, I saw this in halacha sefer. It says, you put the hecker down, but he's not allowed to eat if he doesn't have a hecker. That's what it says. But he can put his own hecker down, then he can eat. Okay, so it's okay, yeah.
And he doesn't need to know what my hecker is.
No, he doesn't need to know what your hecker is.
Amazing.
Yeah, yes.
I feel so liberated.
Or because I heard that it could just be like a vase that's like on the table.
Well, it's the two of you are sitting together with a whole bunch of other people.
Right.
Probably should be between you. If it's just the two of you and there's a vase on the table that you put on the table, that's your hecker, then I think so. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think the vase in the middle of the table is a whole bunch of people is a hecker for the two of you. I don't think so, but I have to double check with
also, if you're sitting, is it only if you're sitting next to each other? What if he's like at the end of the table?
Okay, so I asked Rabbi Shustin. He said, that if there's two people sitting in between the two of you and it's hard to put a hecker, so there's not only one, but two, you don't need to have a hecker. So one on one side, one on the other side. It could be other rabbis say different things. I specifically asked him today just to make sure. So he said, that it's hard to put a hecker, there's two people. Really, the reason for hecker is because shouldn't eat from each other's food, and that becomes more intimate. If there's milchig and fleish, if I'm eating milchig and my husband's eating fleischig, I also need a hecker. And that hecker actually is enough of a hecker. I need to have two heckers. So if let's say he likes his steak and I want pizza, my kids have pizza, I'm making the steak, I eat my pizza, you don't need, then you have a hecker for that. And that's also your hecker for your neighbor. Okay, so that works for both. On Shabbos, I asked Rabbi Shustin this last time, you could use the becher as a hecker. If you always take it off, now everyone's going to know the trick. If you always take it off when you're not in Nidah. So when you're not in Nidah, you take the becher off the table. When you are, leave it there, and then there's your hecker. You could also use an extra challah roll as a hecker. On Shabbos, you could discuss this with your husband before. It doesn't have to be right by the meal. This is always going to be our hecker, and that's it. Okay? Now, the next thing is sharing the same, yes.
Sorry, just to go back.
Yes.
Can you clarify? You said that when you're intimate, you have to cover your hair.
According to Kabbalah, it's best at the point when your husband's already going inside of you to cover your hair at that point. if it's possible.
So you say like 1 second. Like I'm gonna get a
Well, don't have to say 1 second. You can have a tickle right over there and stick it on, okay? Don't say the 1 second, please.
when my college teacher, she wasn't Chabad, but she said it's so important to be there, like there to become one.
Yes,
So
but the
isn't
here
that
is not, the here is something different. The rest of, you're not supposed to have
like
anything
my
on the rest
brain,
of
like my head is not
You
here.
don't, right, okay. This is according to Kabbalah.
I'm
One minute.
saying, like,
I know, according to Kabbalah, there's something about the here that is, when it's covered, it brings extra brachas. Now, if it's not possible, you don't have to do it. It's not a halacha. Okay?
like wouldn't
Wear
it
your
be
shirt though.
like a bun, like it's up.
I'm just saying,
Like a
you don't
onesie,
have
like-
to cover your hair. Your college teacher, if you was a Chabad, she's not telling you to cover your hair during that point. But in Chabad, we go according to Kabbalah, and the Rebbe spoke about Kimchas, and we learned Kimchas was very, very careful about always covering her hair. And when you learn into the detail, you find during intimacy, not a drop of her hair was showing. Okay, but the rest of there's no clothes on you, the rest of your body, just your hair. Okay.
Somebody once shared with me that when you quickly fix your THLA, you're also reminding both of you to have good intention. It's like a kind of like a
Yeah, but you don't have to say anything. Okay, that's
no, obviously not saying,
yes,
but it's like the act
yes,
is-
yeah, but it's not
Wow,
true.
that's good.
Yeah, it's a good point. I like that. Okay, sharing the same dish, cup, or container. So you're not allowed to eat from the same dish, even if other people are eating from it. So if the whole family's eating the popcorn, you can't stick your hand in and he sticks his hand in, but you could stick your hand and put it in your plate. Okay, he could stick his hand in and put it in his plate, but you can't. You have to put it on a plate. So it always basically I tell the girls it's like 1, 2, and then your mouth. Okay, so not directly from the bowl, but something else. It doesn't have to be on a plate. It could be on a napkin. It could be on your skirt, as long as it's not going directly into your mouth. Okay. Also, small pieces of food like chips or nuts or chocolates or pickles and things like that. Don't take one at a time and put on your plate. Just take a whole bunch, put on your plate, and then eat it. Okay. Or popcorn or anything like that. Also, you shouldn't both be dipping your food into the salt nonstop. Like, oh, I like French fries with salt. I keep on dipping it in. Take the salt on your plate if you really want the salt. The same thing with the ketchup or anything else. If it's just one time dipping the salt in the challah, it's okay. It's just like continuously dipping into salt. A tub of butter or cream cheese or anything like that, you could, or peanut butter, you could put it directly from the tub on your bread. Because again, there's the cream cheese, the bread, and then my mouth. So it doesn't have to go on the plate, it just has to go on the bread and then in my mouth. But if you're both sticking the spoon into the peanut butter and eating the peanut butter directly from the tub, then you would have to put it on your plate. Okay. Now, leftovers is a difference between a husband and wife. In general, the wife could eat her husband's leftovers. I just recently saw, unless the husband will be very excited about the wife eating his leftovers, but I hopefully no husbands are. But the husband can eat your leftovers, okay? But there are exceptions to this rule, ways of getting around it. So how do you get around this? So number one, you don't have to tell him you ate it. So let's say you had some pasta and there was leftovers and it's in the bowl. He doesn't have to know you ate it. He asked you, can I have it? You said, go eat it. Also, if you didn't touch that piece of food at all, so let's say you had pasta and fish and you ate the pasta but left over the fish, he could eat the whole piece of fish. See, you can transfer the food from your plate to his plate. So if you have mashed potatoes, you eat half of it, put the rest of the mashed potatoes on his plate. But if it's something that's not really eaten from a plate, like a piece of cake, you just eat directly, or a cookie, you eat directly from your hand. So if you bit from the cookie, transferring it to another plate doesn't work. See if someone else ate or drank in between the two of you. So if, let's say you have one water bottle in the car, first of all, let your husband always drink first. But let's say you need to take a drink and then he wants to take a drink. But if there's a kid in the car, the kid could drink and then he could drink. The last thing is the wife could leave the room. So let's say he wants to eat your leftover, whatever it is, there's only one plate. You could leave the room and he could finish it. And he could even ask you to leave the room. Okay, is this clear?
You just look away.
I don't know if looking away is enough. It says leave the room. Yeah.
Last year, someone, I don't remember who the speaker was, but was saying that when you're cooking, it becomes a problem with like tasting. So I don't know. I
No, it's not a problem.
Oh, maybe I heard.
Yeah, you heard it wrong. You can taste the food. Yes, you don't have to. It's not your leftovers. Tasting food. Okay, tasting food from the pot to make sure there's enough salt, to make sure the soup is hot and the soup has enough salt or whatever. It's fine. It's not considered your leftovers. Okay. The whole pot of soup is now not your leftovers. But even if it is, don't tell it, right? Okay, you don't have to tell it. The next thing is pouring and serving food. So you want to serve the other one a portion of food. So number one, if if you prepare a plate for your husband, let's say in the kitchen, you want to give him his dinner. So you could give it to him. This is my food. This is the food. So you can't put it right directly in front of him, but you can put it next to him and then he could take it. Also, if let's say I'm a lefty, which I am, and I use my right hand and I give it to my right hand, that's considered a shino. Okay, so number one is giving him the plate of food. Okay, number two is a communal platter. So let's say it's Shabbos meal, you put everything out onto platters. You could put it directly in front of him first because it's not only for him, it's for everyone else, so that's okay. Now, but let's say I'm sitting at the Shabbos table next to him, I'm a guest at someone's house. So the plate's in front of me and the cup's in front of me. He can't put, or I can't put food in either. I can't put food in his plate, he can't put food in mine. Everyone just take your own food. Also, you can't put any drinks into the cup besides water. So you can pour water into his cup and that's the only thing you can pour into his cup, okay?
Unfinished.
And unfinished. The next thing is a drink. If it's unfit for to drink, let's say coffee without milk or coffee without sugar, if you never drink it without milk or sugar, then he can give it to you and you add your own milk or sugar because it's not edible for you at that point.
Can't you serve each other just with a shinoi, like with your left hand? Or...
So a drink already, you can't pour, if the cup's in front of you or the plate's in front of you, there's no shinoi, you just serve. At that point, everyone has to serve their own food. But if you're giving him a plate of food, he's sitting at the table. So it's not like you're sitting around the table with other people with the plates in front of him.
Can he make
like this,
two,
you're not going to make it too close.
Could he make 2 cups of tea, but they're both the same exact? It's not
He
like
can
this
make
one specifically with extra
so
honey
with
because
the-
you like that.
If he's not going to give it to you and you take it on your own, then it's
So
okay.
he makes 2 and brings it to the table. Is that okay?
Yeah, but again, he's not putting it right directly in front. He shouldn't put it directly in front of you. Really, Rabbi Shusterman said the only thing that you can't really pass to your wife, even through a shliach, is wine or any other alcoholic, like chashav drink. I don't know if tea, I don't think tea is considered a chashav drink. He said wine or a chashav drink shouldn't. So in general, with kiddush, right, we don't take the, I tell the college, you don't have to do this, but just keep a regular thing, like keep it the same way always, because it looks weird sometimes. You drink directly from his cup, something not. He puts the kiddush cup down, you serve everyone from the kiddush cup, and it's fine. But he can't give you any wine directly or through a shliach or any other alcohol. So Rabbi Shitson said beer or any other alcohol. Yeah.
If he puts the kiddush cup down, but the wine inside is still shaking, you have to wait till it stops moving.
No, it's fine.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I never heard that before, but there's no reason why the wine has to stop shaking.
You're not
Yeah.
feeling the movement.
No, you're not feeling his movement from the wine shaking. If you want to drink from his becher, though, he can't drink afterwards. So if you're in Nidah, just pour it into your own cup. And then, like, if he's not going to drink afterwards, after you, it's technically okay, but he can't drink after you drink from it.
Unless you pass to other people.
Right. I mean, I guess if you pass to other people, but if you're all going to drink from the same cup, I don't know, say Corona days, we're all, yes, okay. Okay, so that's the wine. Just be extra careful with the wine because wine is chashav or anything else like that. Now, we went through basically the 5 senses. I just, again, want to emphasize, compliment each other, talk to each other, have a relationship, figure out things that you like to do with each other, play games. You shouldn't play games that could lead. What?
You're allowed to compliment?
Yeah, of course you're allowed to compliment.
Really?
You could, yeah, please compliment. You talk to each other. We're careful not to flirt or to be openly, what's the word? I just lost the word. Endearing or like, you. Now, even
You can't give gifts, right?
okay, so gifts could be given if it's your birthday and you will be very, very sensitive about not getting the gift, then he's allowed to actually give you the gift. Okay, it doesn't say from the husband, it just says from the wife, from the husband to the wife, not from the wife to the husband. I think the wife can wait. The husband can wait for you to be finished. It says the husband can give flowers to his wife for Shabbos, that's not considered a gift. And if you're sensitive, he's allowed to give you a gift, but it shouldn't be of an intimate nature. So it shouldn't be something like lingerie or a nightgown or something like that. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going
Yes.
all the way back.
No,
but
please.
I always heard that you're not allowed to go even like on a walk unless there's like a very practical destination. And, like,
No, you're allowed to go on a walk. If you're going on a walk, just to ear your brain and to get exercise and to have the food go down, you're for sure allowed to take a walk together.
There doesn't have to be a destination.
No, it doesn't have to be a destination. Just be careful not to touch each other, or your coat shouldn't be flapping in the wind or whatever. But we can take a walk together. Yeah.
Can he make you tea when you're Nidah?
Okay, so he shouldn't be placing it directly in front of you.
He can make
Yeah, he can make it for you, and then you can take it yourself. Just like you place a plate of food in front of you. Now, there are opinions that are more strict. Okay, there are different opinions, so that's what I'm saying that. I'm just saying, according to Rabbi Shusterman, he said wine or an alcoholic beverage is considered chashuv, and that shouldn't be sent to you even any other way. And there are stricter opinions, so just be aware there are different opinions. So if you want to ask your own Rav to be double sure, yeah. Yeah.
I had heard once that you can have a different perfume for your Nidah days. Is that true? Have you heard of that? What was the question?
A different perfume for your Nidah days. I never heard of
that. One that's
What is
that
it,
got
skunk
you, and
on
then
your
you have
days?
this other one that's someone.
Okay, first of all, deodorant is not a problem. Even a scented deodorant, okay? Just, I want to be clear about that. It sounds like a way out of it. I would for sure ask a Rav that question. I cannot tell you that, and that's okay. But if you want to ask a Rav, go ahead. You can ask a Rav any question you want. Please don't hesitate. Okay? Yes. Yes.
When your water breaks, you don't necessarily
No,
bleed.
you don't go. The water breaking, I said, doesn't put you into a Nidah state unless there's some blood coming out with it, and then it's
Like the
problematic.
mucus plug.
What?
Like the mucus.
Yes, the mucus blood. That could be a problem. Then you would ask the Rav. Then you would call the Rav and say, "My water broke. I saw some blood with it."
And then you're really not a Nidah until
You
you
are-
can't physically stand.
Right. You can't. You need assistance to help you walk, basically.
You're not a Nidah.
But lots of people can walk for a really long time.
Yeah. So then you're not a Nidah. It's active labor to like. That's when.
So then
Technically,
they
someone could be in
can see
the.
you not sneeze.
If you're not a Nidah, okay, let's say someone's has in labor for 24 hours. The first 20 hours, it's not so active, but she's, having contractions, and there's no blood, and even if a water breaks, but it's only water and no blood. If you want to ask,
she shouldn't look, or
you don't have to look. I don't think you have to look. You never have to look
I
unless.
don't know. I just feel like they're always like, "Are you Nidah?" I don't know. Are they supposed
You
to
can
ask?
you can be in touch with your Rav if you're not sure about it. So you can always do that, but okay. I just like to just do things together. I was saying you could play games. Just don't play games that could lead to intimate nature, like maybe Pictionary could be a little bit like that, but you can play Scrabble or any kind of board games or word games that would be okay. Yes.
What about going on a family bike where you have like you, your husband, and a few of your kids? Are you allowed to do that?
I would think it might be a problem. I would for sure ask a Shaila about that. Yeah, I know it's like a huge bike. I would ask a Rav because you do. First of all, when the kids are not giving too much energy to that bike, I would think that 90% is you and your husband. So I would think probably it's not okay. But if you want to make sure, I'm not going to tell you yes or no. I think it sounds like it might be a problem, but I'm not sure. Okay. Other things the two of you could do together. Also, it could be, let's say, certain things you like to do. So save those things for when you're in Nidah. If you like to clean up the house and organize, so keep yourself busy. Take care of yourself. Go out with your friends. Figure out what to do. Don't just sit around and mope around. Be busy. I mean, most of us are anyway busy. Be busy. Figure out things that you could do with your husband. That's okay, and make sure that you keep up that relationship at this time. Okay, you can learn together. It says that you shouldn't learn from the same sefer. You should have two separate sfarim. Because or anything you want to learn doesn't have to be Torah or Hasidus or whatever you want to learn, but have two separate books.
Or you let it, let's say you're like you have to have two separate students.
You know what? I'm not sure. It just say when you learn, you should have two separate books. But that's you're sitting together and learning. You see, you're standing. When you say you're standing, you don't have to touch each other. I think it's probably okay. But if you want to, I'm not going to do 100%. I never give 100% because I'm not around. Preparing water to wash is one thing. You're not allowed to prepare water to wash in each other's presence. That's not for a mitzvah. So like a bath, like filling a bath for each other, it's not okay in each other's presence. That's because it used to be a big deal to get the water and heat the water, and it'd be a whole big thing. Another thing is that the besamim, he shouldn't be holding when you smell it, or you holding when he smells it. Just put it down. That's what it says in the halacha. But just because you might come close to, when you smell, you come close to each other. But if you want to ask your own Rav, you can always ask your own if something that doesn't sound like, oh, what do I have to do this? Okay. Also, during the days of the blood, only the days of the blood, we don't look at the letters of the Sefer Torah. Also, some people don't go to Kfarim, but let's say you're going to the aisle, it's the only time you could go. Ask the Rav. Some people say you can go up to the entrance or ask your Rav. Well,
Sorry.
So during the days of your bleeding, okay, during those days, some people say that you shouldn't go to a caver, to someone's caver. Okay, but again, even a topic, ask your own Rav. If it's like something that that you need to do, you can ask your Rav. This is like a minhag. It's not a I think it's more of a minhag kind of thing.
So you can't go to the aisle.
Like what if
No, I'm
it's your
saying the aisle, if you're only going to be there at a certain time, and it's first of all, it's only your bleeding days. It's not your Shiva Nikim. It's only the bleeding days. Okay. Then second of all, if it's the only time you could go, and some people say the aisle doesn't apply. People go to the aisle. Some people go up to the door of the aisle. Ask your own Rav. Just be aware. It's something that some people do. Okay. Anything else? Okay, I have some stories, but it's really late at night already. Anything else that anyone has a question? Okay, I don't know. I managed to get through. I think I got through the halachas, and thank you all for coming and listening. And
Between the bed is the 19 inches what's most important, or if you have
a
night
nightstand?
table that's good enough, even if it's less than 19 inches.
I heard that blankets are not supposed to.
Right. Then the what says is that if the blankets fall off each other's beds, it doesn't come to touch. So if my blanket falls off my bed and his blanket falls off his bed, it doesn't touch. It's okay. I once had a colleague that showed me her apartment that she was thinking of maybe getting in New York, and she showed me the nightstand that was, I promise you this why. I was like, I don't know if that works. Because these apartments in New York, they're so small. So I don't know. I'm like, the other couple, like it worked for them. I don't know. Ask your Rob. Like that, I asked about, they managed. I don't know. So if you want, you're not 100% sure, ask your Rob. But that's about the yes.
Are there? I don't know if you said this, but are there things you shouldn't talk about?
To who?
To my husband during Nidah?
Things of an intimate nature you probably shouldn't talk about. I did hear somewhere some people say that on the day that you're going to the mikveh, you can tell your husband, oh, I mean, this is maybe one opinion. I don't know if everyone holds of this. I heard this recently. You can say, oh, I'm so, excited to go to the mikveh because at night you're going to be back together with him. You can talk about anything, but if it's of intimate nature, that you shouldn't talk about. And if you have a special words that you say to each other during intimacy or when, when loving words, that should be saved for when you're not in it. Okay? And we don't even tell you which words those are. Like some people say, I love you like hello and goodbye. So if you say, I love you like hello and goodbye, fine. If you want to save I love you for not that's your special word for not neither time, then don't say it when you are neither. But it's not, there's no words that any rebels say don't say to each other. Yeah, I mean, obviously certain things are explicit, you're not going to say. We're just talking about general words that other people would say. Yes. I don't know if it's either. I saw that it says the proximate is 19 inches and there's a minhag to have a nightstand. 19 inches is not so much, by the way. It's 12 inches of the foot, what, this big? And then, so what, it's about that much. I mean, I'm just estimating. So there is an opinion that says when you're bleeding, you shouldn't go to Kivrei Tzadikim. But some people say it's the only time you could be there at the aisle, or there's different opinions about it. So if you want to ask your own Rav, and also some people say just go up to the entrance of the aisle, don't go all the way in. What? Yeah, okay. So everyone do what you do, okay? So that's whatever you want to do, you could do. And some people say it's not, but I'm saying there are different opinions. So just do what your Rav says.
Is that just by tzaddikim or any?
It says kivrei tzaddikim in general. And again, it's only during the days of your bleeding. So if you stop bleeding, you don't have to worry about it. Okay?
Any other burial?
I don't know about other burial. That I don't know. It says the word said kivrei tzaddikim, so I don't know. It could be different. Okay, great.
Thank you so much.
Story.
You want a story? I have lots of stories.
Yeah.
I just like, you guys don't want to go to sleep.
Say your favorite
story. My favorite story. I have stories over here. I took some stories. I don't know what my favorite story is. I was like, if we have time, I could say some stories. I like this one. This one, I guess for a mother with twins, we can tell you this one, even though you have your nanny. So, so the Rebbe, this is from Mrs. Chana Garari, okay? So when she went to the Rebbe, she said she was pregnant with her fifth child. Her oldest was just 4. And she was very depressed. She couldn't cope. And even though she had cleaning help twice a week, and her husband was able to be home a lot during the day, it was still very hard for her. So her husband was going to New York for family bris, as well as Yechidus for his birthday. And he suggested I come and go ask the Rebbe's advice. So she was very nervous and what the Rebbe going to tell me? I'm not such a high madrega. It's very hard to accept the situation. So there was some of my arguments, but my husband insisted. So I made arrangements for the older 3 and took the baby with us to New York. Late that night, went into Yechidus, and the Rebbe spoke to me. It was not in the heavens, she said. Amongst the other things, the brachas and encouragement that he said, this is one thing that he said. He said, your occupation is your children. You have to see to make things easier for yourself. Goyim were made to help Yidden. If you let them do what they were created for, then you'll have menucha to fulfill what you were created for. So if you have a Goyim once a week, now you can take her twice. And if you have her twice, then you can take her 3 times. And you shouldn't check up in the corners after her to see if she cleaned really well enough. And she said she was stunned. She never expected the Rebbe to answer her in such a down-to-earth and practical way. And ever since, I've been careful to take plenty of help, and much more than most of my friends, and it's always been my top priority. And only years later did it dawn on me that the Rebbe knows his customers, because he said it's a big effort for me to follow his advice and not to look in the corners. And as a PS, at a previous Yechidus, the Rebbe told my husband not to worry about money for cleaning help. Then he did that 2 times a week instead of once, and Hashem provides for all necessities, and this cleaning help is a necessity. So the Rebbe said that money is not an issue. If you need it, you need it. So that's very special. Not all Rebbes do that. You know?
Yeah.
So was the right story for you or not?
You have another one?
Another one. Okay.
We need to close that one more day.
And this is just a short story. This is about cover over here. So short. It says over here. This is who wrote this. This is Mrs. Selden Emes. She said so she was in Russia. She was born in Russia, then she moved to Israel, then she came to the United States, and she said she came to the Rebbe. She had a hat that covered the front of her head and a shaitel wore in the back of her head. Then she came to the Rebbe discussed issues, and then he asked my husband to leave the room, and he told me that once you wear shaitels, I told the Rebbe my hair is completely covered. I have a hat and a shaitel. The Rebbe repeated that once you wear shaitel. Again, I told the Rebbe I wear half a shaitel, which covers my hair in the back, and a hat which completely covers my hair in the front. The Rebbe said wearing half a shaitel is like having half of oneself. These words of the Rebbe deeply concerned me. See my concern, the Rebbe smiled and said, "From where's a shaitel? One is promised gazon, parnasa, and nachos for the children and grandchildren." Then, with a smile, the Rebbe asked me what else I would like, and I said, "This is enough." And then the Rebbe called him my husband and told him to buy me the nicest shaitel so that others are also going to wear one. So, as we stand in the threshold of the Geula, let's be careful, no matter where we are, to dress as the Rebbe asks us to dress, from shaitel, clothing, speech, and action. That's from the shaitel. You shaitel, you cleaning house. It's all recorded.
It's only class number 1.
Absolutely.
By the way, if anyone wants to call me, ask me any questions, my email is frumywolf@gmail. It's FRUMIWOLF. And I also have these notes. It's on that thing, but if you want me to send it to you, I can send it to you. I have it on the Google Doc.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Guys, how do I close this, guys? Guys, how do I end this?
Let me help you.
Do you know how?
Here it says end. We need you want to say a word to them?
You see end? Could you type thank you for joining and class?
They hear you. You could just say.
Thank you, guys. Just wait. Thank you. This is gonna end now.
How are you cleaning up this whole thing?
I'm gonna do it now. Hold on. Huh? She want to write thank you for joining. See you next week. Oh, it's still recording. Okay, now how do I save it so it's saved onto my Facebook?
So it automatically saves it.
It's gonna be on my Facebook. So enter.
that enter.
Oh, you sent it to Sir Kashani.
Oh, oops.
Wait, how do I?
You could see the chat if you want.
Okay, I don't know how to end it. Hi, Bremo. How do I end the? How do I end it, please, and save it on my Facebook? I want to make sure. Right here.
I want to save the chat for you.
Okay, I don't see where it says end. Do you see an end?
Right
Oh,
here,
my
right
friend found it. Sharona
That's
found
it?
it. Yeah.